Great. Hey, Lori.
Hi.
So I'm going to just kick this off. This is a follow-up to the curriculum workshop project that we worked on this summer. So I know that there was a lot of interest in the story mapping, and Carly Imhoff has graciously agreed to give us some time tonight to share what she's been doing with her students in a little, I think, easier to get your arms around with real examples than the bigger story mapping with Esri that we had the privilege of listening to. Carly, just so you all know, is also joining us in the Amazon for the first time after a very long 2-year wait. And she is one of the Courtney Wilson Fellows. Courtney Wilson was at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology and unfortunately passed away way too early at the start of a really promising career. And her parents have been funding fellowships for teachers to join us in the Amazon. So Carly's been waiting for 2 whole years. So this is the year. We're so excited. So Carly, I'm just gonna go ahead and turn this over to you. You should be able to share screens and all of that. And then it's a small group, so I'm sure we won't have any problems with questions as they come up, but let's let Carly get started.
So it's loading on my end. There we go. So hopefully everyone can see the first slide.
Yeah.
Yes.
I teach kindergarten through 8th grade science, and I've done story maps with students in all of those age groups. I do maybe like 8 or 9 story map projects a year, but they're all like small ones just scattered in. So I'm definitely not an expert. And it feels like every time I log on to Esri, they have a new type of story map and a new platform, and there's always a lot of changes. So I mostly just go in and play around with it. So I'm gonna give some pictures and examples, and then I'm just going to log into my account and show you a story map that my kids were working on today. And so you can see like what one in progress looks like.
That sounds perfect.
For some reason, even though I'm on Google Slides, I can't see my notes, but I don't think I really need my notes, so I can wing this. So story maps, when I'm using the phrase, I'm using the ones by ArcGIS, which is made through an organization called Esri. And those accounts are completely free for schools. So you can go in, make a school account, have as many student accounts as you want. I say as many, there might be a cap, but I have 400 students. So if there is a cap, it's a really high cap. So most of the story maps I make with my students are on different United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So this is a not great picture of our cafeteria with all the goals up. If you haven't heard of them, they're just the goals the United Nations is working on to meet by 2030 on a variety of topics, though based on the type of people who would be at this webinar, you probably all already have heard of those. So how I normally do it, because it's easiest for me, but is by far not the only way to do it, is first, before we make a story map, I have all of my students make surveys. And we use an app called Survey 123, which is also by Esri. So same platform. When you make your student accounts, they also work for Survey 123. And when the students do it, they make their own survey. So on like whatever UN Sustainable Development Goal they wanted, or it could be examples of erosion in your playground, like it could be a survey on anything. And then they add questions to their survey that they are going to answer every single time they see an example of it. So if it was erosion, they could have a survey like erosion at our school. And the survey could have one question, which is just take a picture of an example of it, or it could have a question like take a picture, also, I don't know, write a description of it, whatever you want. The app automatically saves the coordinates. So the kids are all around doing their surveys, and then you as a teacher can easily just import all of their survey data onto a map if you want. So all of those pictures with the coordinates go onto a map without you having to do anything except clicking on their survey and saying import to whatever name you gave your map. So that's not a story map. That will just be your base layer map that you can turn into a story map with as little effort as possible while still having dozens of students working on the same map. So this is a picture of a bunch of surveys that my students made when we took a trip to Germany, and we were working with our German partner school on different UN Sustainable Development Goal indicators. seeing if there were more indicators of reaching those goals in Germany or the United States, or like where we could learn from each other. So they all had their different surveys. They were all on their phones. Though when I do this with my little kids, I have a class set of really old iPods. I don't think they make iPod touches anymore, but if you can get your hands on them, they're super cheap. They work like an iPhone. You can trust a kid with it. So they're all working on their like either school iPads or iPhones or iPods or whatever. And all of that data is going into your map just automatically. So here are some of the pictures the kids were taking. So when they had their survey, they were taking pictures. The pictures were also going on the map. So you're getting all this data. You can obviously delete extra data later. And again, this isn't the only way to do it. I just like it because as a teacher, it makes my life easy, that it's just automatically uploading. We can look at the map on the smartboard and go through all that data together. So again, you're taking the surveys, you're making a base layer app or map rather, and then you have to decide what type of story map you would like to make from all of that information. And there are different types of story maps on ArcGIS. So one type of story map, and I believe this is the one that they had originally, because I feel like a few years ago, it was my only option when I was making story maps. It's just a sidecar. So you have information and pictures sort of on the left, and as you scroll down, where you are in the map will change on the map image. So it's nice, it's clear, it's easy to do. However, after that, a few years ago, they came, oh, sorry, here's another picture of a sidecar story map. This is why I should use my notes. So you can see the kids were looking at gender equality, and they were plotting times where they saw examples of that through their Survey 123 app, and it was going on to the story map together. So besides the sidecar, you can also do a story map tour. And that's sort of what I do now, just because I like it a bit better. So you can do a guided tour or not guided tour, but basically people are looking at your map and they are scrolling through all the dots on the map. And if it's a guided tour, it takes them through those dots in order. And I'll actually log into my account and show you this in an interactive way in a second. Or you could have a non-guided tour where someone looks at a map, they see that there are all these different places where you have media and pictures and different parts of your story, and they can go on in any order. So you can choose whether you wanted a guided tour or just a normal tour. And I'm seeing that there are a bunch of comments I was ignoring. Oh, how do they get Wi-Fi? So we're lucky that we have Wi-Fi at school, even on the playground. So that's not a problem. When we're traveling, that example was of middle schoolers who all have cell phones. So they were just using their data plan. I did years ago when our Wi-Fi wasn't so good. I wouldn't recommend this if you don't have to, but we actually use handhold like Garmin GPS devices that we use for geocaching. And we use those and we just plugged in the coordinates later. But I don't recommend that if you don't have to do that, because that'll just make your life harder than it needs to be. And how much time do you spend getting the kids up to speed with a platform? So that's actually going to be my next slide. All right, so under ideas for getting started, when I first started using ArcGIS, I used a program called Geo Inquiries. And I know a lot of different organizations use the phrase Geo Inquiries, but when ArcGIS is using it, they have these like pre-planned lessons where they have maps that obviously students use to generate questions on topics from like social studies to math to science. You find your standard and they have a map and activity to meet that standard. And so it's definitely not story maps. It's also not particularly creative because the kids aren't generating the maps, but it gives them any time to explore the maps and explore the platform while also meeting whatever standard you are currently working on. So when I first started like getting the kids Esri accounts and all of that, I did not even begin story maps. I just did some of the guided geo inquiries. So like we could all figure out how to log on and we could all figure out how to look at maps. And they were easy and they were super fun. There's a whole bunch about like watersheds and it's just fun to follow the rivers. Also, I constantly taught, not in the last few years, but when I was getting started, there are regional support managers, and I have one of their contact information that I constantly bother. So like I was once working on a story map with a bunch of students in Bermuda, and we kept getting error messages, and I think I was emailing him like at midnight on a Saturday, and he was still responding, trying to help us like figure out what to do. Because not so much currently, but especially just a few years ago, ArcGIS isn't the most intuitive platform. It's not like using an Apple computer where things sort of make sense. Like it's really code heavy and sort of clunky sometimes. So having a support person that you can just constantly email is what I need, because I don't have that technical background. And they're really, really, really good about giving teachers the support they need. They even keep data on like how many teachers in different states are using ArcGIS. And they really, really want more teachers to be using it. So they are going to be overly helpful in supporting you as you're getting used to the platform. So let's actually get into my account so we can see what my students were working on today. Hopefully. My internet's a bit slow, sorry. All right, so we made this today. It is not a final copy of anything. This is like what you can put together in, well, in my case, 2 class periods, because I have 2 sections of 4th grade back to back. So we have a story map in tour form, and it's a drop of water in the Amazon, but also a drop of water in our watershed, because that's what we were currently learning about. So you can see the map and the different data that they have on it. And then, okay, almost every single time I've made a story map, the kids have been in the field getting the data and doing it through Survey 123. And today I wanted to see if we could just take a plain map, look at the map, and try to make a story out of it. Because unfortunately, I had several field trips planned for last month to really cool places in like Long Island Sound and Thames River. But as you can probably guess where this story is going, those field trips were canceled. And obviously the kids have not been to the Amazon. So they were all given different parts of our watershed, and they were given watercolors and different art supplies, which I almost never do. So it was a super fun class. And we tried to beef up this map with some of our own images and some of our own creative writing. So this is what the kids came up with. Again, don't judge too much, 1 class period this morning. All right, so it says everywhere on Earth is part of a watershed. In Ashford, we're part of the Thames River watershed. All of the water in the Thames River watershed goes to the Atlantic Ocean. You guys know this. So here's some graphics that the kids made. And as I'm scrolling, we're going to be going through the map. So we're getting to the Atlantic Ocean. Then we're going to start at our school and go through our watershed. So when it rains at Ashford School, all the water eventually ends up in the ocean. So the little stream behind our school flows into the Mount Hope River. The Mount Hope River is behind Ashford Town Hall. The river flows to Mansfield Hollow. And I'm just scrolling using like the icons on the left, but you could also just drag and click. Like if you wanted to follow this river through Willimantic, you're all getting a tour of Connecticut that you probably were not expecting to get today. You could do it that way too until you find the next picture that the kids made. So then we have the Mansfield Hollow Dam, which is a great place for hiking and picnics if you're ever in Connecticut. If you visit the Mansfield Hollow, you can see water from Ashford travel on its way to the Willimantic River. Right, and then we're in downtown Willimantic. Frog Bridge goes over the Willimantic River. The Willimantic River flows into the Thames River. All right, we are in the Thames River watershed because all of our water flows to the Thames. And then we're going through Long Island Sound to the Atlantic Ocean. The kids are making it go full circle, talking about parallels between the Amazon River, and you get the gist. And my computer's being a little bit slow, or else the map would be loading a little bit faster on your end. So it's not difficult to do. If you can make a PowerPoint presentation, you can basically make a story map. You're basically just inputting data in an order and telling a story, sort of like you would with PowerPoint slides. Are there any questions? I'd be happy to show other examples, or.
Do you have one where you took the data from Survey 123 and you put it into your maps? Your story?
Yeah, so remember when I said ArcGIS is always changing? So the Germany map and also the Bermuda map are on the old version of ArcGIS. So I can show you screenshots of it, but here, let me see if I could get into Survey 123. Give me one sec.
This is incredible. How old were the kids that put together this on the fly example you just showed
Those
us?
are my fourth graders.
Okay. How many maps have they done prior to this?
Maybe a couple a year.
Okay.
So 2 years since kindergarten, so maybe 8 or so, but like they're fourth graders. They have forgotten anything we did last year. So I even think if they had never made a map before, I think we could have pulled it off.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sign into my 123 account and just see if I can get this to go fast. All right. Thanks for being patient. Does anyone else have a question while I'm logging in?
Michelle's asking same thing. Can you walk us through survey 123? And if I understood this right, survey 123 is on the Esri platform. And it's where the kids ask the questions and collect, they're basically collecting their data points in that, and then that gets dumped into the mapping software.
Exactly like making a Google form, except since it's on the same platform, it will upload automatically.
Okay.
And my computer is being super slow right now. Let me see if I can log in this way.
Carly,
Yes.
would it be possible to take the story map and turn it into a video so that it like plays by itself?
So I don't think that's a feature that is built in. I have used, so we also do video morning announcements at our school. So we have used parts of our story map on iMovie with like kids narrating it. But to my knowledge, that's not a feature that's built into the platform.
Yeah, I was wondering because I love it. I was totally unaware of it. And I'm thinking for my graduate students, we could do some things. And especially for presentations at the end of the semester, it might be cool if they're able, each one, to show, briefly what they do. And if it were automated to the point that it was like a video, it might be neat.
So
I did something like that for some graduate work. I had to create a story map, and I can't remember now. It wasn't built on the Esri platform, but I think I basically just, did like a screen share kind of a thing and walked, recorded myself walking through it. And it worked just fine to do it that way.
Okay. Yeah, I see lots of possibilities here. This is really cool.
And that question reminds me that you can also upload videos to your story map, which doesn't answer your question, but is a cool feature. So even if they're using survey 123 or just filming any video, those are all information you can put right onto it. Oh, I think it's loading. Okay. I'm so sorry about this.
No, don't worry about it. It's Zoom land. Plus everybody in the universe is on the internet right now because it's after work, so. You'll have to share your screen again once you're ready to.
Once I'm actually in.
Yeah. So who out there's actually doing story mapping already? Who on the calls, anybody actually doing it already? That's not. Guess you'll all be story mappers after this.
Also, once you do it, there is a super easy contest that Esri has, which is their Teacher of the Month. And I'm pretty sure almost no one applies. And there's also a cash prize that you can use for professional development. So obviously I applied one month.
Yeah, come on, everybody. I expect to see like all of everybody I know entering this. That's awesome. What's the cash prize? Do we know?
I think it wasn't big, but it was like decent, maybe 500 or something.
You know what? That's $500 you didn't have before. That's awesome.
Only for like making a really quick video about how you use the map.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, what I'm going to do to make my intro go a little bit faster is I'm going to turn off my camera for 1 minute and try reloading the page.
Okay, no problem. So Kelly, while Carly's doing that, like what what have you done with story mapping? Or what are you thinking as you hear this?
Can you guys hear me? I'm having a terrible technical evening. Yeah, silly. I think, God, this is like my brain is spinning because there's so many incredible applications of this. And I think there could almost, I'm thinking how cool would it be to have a shared project with students across the country looking at watersheds and relationships to the Amazon would be an incredible kind of collaborative application. We used story maps for evaluation and storytelling when I owned an evaluation firm, and my partner was really the one that led all of those pieces, but the storytelling component of it is really powerful. As you can see, just from what Carly showed, even from what your students put together today, Carly, it's really, really awesome. I didn't know about Survey 123, and now that's where my brain is kind of spinning out on like a billion ways to use it, and I have to kind of calm down and think about where to start. But this is really incredible.
All right, my computer did finally log in. This is not cleaned up at all, and I didn't use Survey 123 for today's activity. So these are from months ago and probably also years ago. Let me see, can I create a new story or new survey? All right. So if I was a student, I would just be logging into my account. Oh, now should not have clicked that button, sorry. It's creating. This is not because of Esri or ArcGIS. This is my home internet, so it will be faster at your school.
Is it my understanding that you have to create the survey on your computer and then you can use it on the app? Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. Or at least that was correct, like the last time I used it a few months ago.
Okay.
So often we create the surveys together, like on the smartboard, because also I want them to log in correctly, so it's all linked to my account. Otherwise, what they're going to do is they're going to just try to log in with their Google accounts, and it'll be separate and won't all match the map. And I like having a little bit more control when we start. That way we don't have problems later. So again, the GPS coordinates are automatic on it, so you don't have to have that as one of your questions. We normally always put an image in because since it's a story map, you're going to want it to be full of different pictures. So this could be an example of, I don't know, erosion. We'll keep it simple. And then we can continue to add questions to it. So I normally also have somewhere where they can write some notes so that, as you notice in our story map, we have like a lot of like little bits of writing connecting everything together. You don't have to have that, but multi-line text normally goes in with, with something about like, I don't know, how is the water being moved through the land? And you get the gist. So you just keep adding questions until they feel like it answers whatever the story there is they are trying to tell. And then, oh, I didn't give it a title. You see, if I was one of my students. Thank you.
Okay, so I have like a basic newbie, like walk me through the like technological craziness of this. So, all right, you've made your survey. You've got 10 kids in your class. You're going out in the back 40 of the school property, and they're going to go out and they're going to use this survey to collect survey data. So what is actually tagging that data to a GPS coordinate? The photo that's being taken because it's geotagged in the photo?
Nope, even if they don't take a photo, when they are clicking and typing in whatever they're typing in, and then they click submit, it's getting that geotag. Okay. So even if it's just a bunch of questions. So I think that
being in a spot. Like,
yes.
Sally's at the playground and Bobby's at the football field, and I'm gonna know that just based on when they hit click with their data, whatever it is, that's how it gets tagged. Okay.
Right, whether or not it's a picture.
Okay.
And also I think that professionals who use this generally use it for like questions and door knocking and things. So they rarely would use the photo feature, but I think as teachers, that's
Okay.
what we probably gravitate to.
Okay.
All right. And then I'm realizing that this is probably not the best example because I made this on my teacher account, but what you would actually have is your kids making it on their student account, because as you could see with the that you're going to want access to all of their surveys. So you won't have that in your teacher account. You'll have to go back to your Esri account where you have the list of all of your students. And then you'll have also all of their survey 1, 2, 3s. So I should have logged in as one of my students, I guess is what I'm saying. But that step is pretty easy to do. The only minor hiccup that could happen is if somebody in your school already has ArcGIS or Esri, they might be like your school leader. I teach in a very, very small school district, so I don't have to worry about things like that. But if there was another teacher who made an account first, you might have to ask them to give you access to sort of the school directory of students.
That was one of my questions. I was going to ask, do you know if a lot of schools, or I also do 4th grade, but I teach Spanish, so I'm like a special. So I was wondering if this is like a standard thing for like 4th grade curriculum, or is this, like you said, it was mostly like a professional, it was used in like a professional type setting, and now we found ways to use it like with education. I was wondering if I mentioned anything to my colleagues at school, if they'd all be like, oh yeah, we use that in, class, or that's what I was wondering.
I have no idea. I know that in my district, no one else uses it, but
Okay.
that may be, I don't know what it looks like in other districts.
Okay, cool.
I think more people will start using it now that it's a bit more user friendly. I feel like 7 years ago, every time we made a map, we would come across some type of error that was in some numerical form that I couldn't even understand what the error was. But now, as you saw, the interface is really friendly and happy. And you know what? I'm going to go back to this and I'm going to click edit, and I'm literally going to show you how easy it is. I logged into my survey account. Just 1 second. That did not prove my point. All right, sign up, or actually, can I just switch accounts? I made myself a student account as well so that I could do both. Okay.
Carly, when you did the watershed tour, all the students were working together on the tour. Did you assign them to different points in the tour, or how did they?
I did. I did not have as many points as there are students, and I have not uploaded all of their points yet because we had like 30 points altogether. But yeah, so what we did is we looked at the map, just the plain map, before we had anything on it together, and the kids considered what they might want to draw. So, I mean, they're 4th graders, so it's hard to tell. But like the one of the Amazon, she was trying to show like different colors from different rivers coming together, and there's a little pink dolphin in the corner, and she was very passionate about doing that. And then also hard to tell, but we had a lot of fun with adding salt to watercolors to make very textured looking oceans. So the kids just picked what they might be interested in doing. All right. So I'm going to click add. And I'm going to add a location. I'm just going to delete this after. And I can search by location. So I don't know, anywhere in the world. Do we want to do Disney World? I'll make sure to delete this before any of my students see what I'm doing. All right, then you just add to map. You can use the automatic tour setting, which sort of makes it flow a little better as far as zooming in and zooming out when it makes sense. Or you can just set it to be at the current zoom level. You can also obviously adjust the zoom level. You can add your location. Okay, give it a title, add any creative writing, add your image or video on top, and you just added a point, just like you would add a slide. It was really that easy. So just click the plus sign and then search for your location. Also, today, a lot of locations weren't things I knew the address for. So we just, as a class, zoomed in together, like looked, oh, behind Town Hall is where the Mount Hope River is. And then you could just click on it to add the location without having to search. So just zoom in really far in your area. And then of course they're children, so all of them wanted to put their own house locations with every stream behind their house. So even though we've had the discussion before, we had another discussion about why you wouldn't necessarily want to publish a map for the world that has everybody's houses on it. But they love seeing like any type of geographic features that are near where they live.
Carly, do you write out instructions for them, or do you walk them through it, or did they just know how to do this stuff because they're they were born with it?
Question. So in my slide notes, I actually had a link to directions. Let me share that again. But then I didn't go through my slide notes, so I forgot to talk about that. So thank you for bringing that up. All right. Oh, 1 second. Sorry about that. My slides went away. Oh, but the answer is yes, especially for bigger projects. Like we got a grant once to take students to Bermuda to build underwater robots to collect eDNA about lionfish. And we were working with our students and also students in Bermuda. So there were a lot of directions because the kids were like way off in different areas. And some of them had never done this before. So an example of those directions. Here we go. So basically the directions are all of the links that they're slowly loading that they're going to need. So the links for creating their survey, then the link to the actual map with all their login information. But yeah, so that was with 7th and 8th graders who can read and who can follow directions. And we just put this like in the very front of a binder so that when they were out in the field, when they weren't sure what to do, they could just follow in like, this is their password, this is the link, they can do this. And of course, we have a nice big picture of the UN Sustainable Development Goals so they don't forget what they're doing and just, you know, have fun in Bermuda, which is probably what 7th and 8th graders would do. And that was a really cool trip because since it was all grant funded, it didn't cost the students anything. And I got to take a really fun class of kids down there. But that's off topic.
Fantastic.
But then with the little kids, we just do it together because if they're pre-readers or even if they're readers, but they're, you know, when you get the 3rd graders who can read, but they're not going to read, then we do everything together. The 4th graders today have done it enough times that they didn't really need directions. And quite honestly, they need more directions about how to use watercolors at this point.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
No problem. I wish that I had better answers to your questions because again, what I do is I just go on and try my best and it's constantly changing and it's super messy. But it is easy. So if you jump in, like, I don't think you would have any problems. And if you do have problems, you are going to email your regional coordinator or anyone at Esri, and they will just respond to you right away. Or you can email me. That would be totally fine too. I can put that in the chat.
So if somebody's just getting started with this, what's the best place to land tonight when they can't sleep and want to like figure out how to start this process?
So go to Esri and make an account. Also go to ArcGIS and make an account. You would think that your account would work for both, but you might need to make a second account. They will link together. I don't know if you noticed today, but when I went from survey 123 to the story map, it logged me out real quick. And that's just because I need to switch to a different, from my Esri account to my ArcGIS account. So I guess I would just go to the geo inquiries and play around with a map that already exists. Okay. Especially if you're like lying in bed tonight and you can't sleep, because it'll be very relaxing.
Laura, you got a question? Oh, maybe she's logging on. So ArcGIS, where are the geo inquiries?
I had a link. Give me one sec. I'll share my screen now.
Okay, so it's in the Esri, Esri.com. Okay.
If you Google it, it will be the first thing that comes up. It's not hard to find. But what's cool is it really does have something for every subject area. So if you do teach Spanish or you teach social studies, yes, I know I logged out to log into, thank you. You can just click on the topic and you can click on the standard and it'll give you a variety of maps that will help kids generate questions about that topic.
Okay.
And nobody needs to make anything, or like you're just exploring.
Okay, that's great. That's super helpful. Because my experience with this was 10 years ago when it was just like, oh my Lord, there was no way I could ever imagine doing this with kids, especially.
No, 7 years ago, it was also awful.
Yeah, so this is amazing. So much easier. Awesome.
Oh, and once you sign up and you make your school account, every month they will send you the most beautiful magazine that's like huge and full color of different map examples. And so those are fun to look through too.
Okay,
sorry, Phil, what were you saying?
Kirsten's asking if we can put the links in the chat for the accounts we need to make. So you need to make one for Esri.com, right?
Yep. And is it arcgis.com? I'm not sure, just a sec, I assume. Yep, arcgis.com. But you would do Esri first, because Esri is like the umbrella. And so you would sign up with them. You would sign up as a teacher in a school so that you and everyone else who has the same like email address pattern as you would have free accounts. Like at my school, all our email addresses ended at ashfordct.org. So any teacher who has that email address would then just be able to have a free account under our school umbrella. But you do sort of have to, I mean, it's not apply because everyone gets it, but you do have to, if your school isn't already part of it, sort of sign up your school and then everyone gets free accounts who would like one.
And then you said ArcGIS is arcgis.com.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. I just put those in there. They're not hyperlinked for on my internet's like being wonky too. They're not hyperlinking, but at least you've got the URL, more or less the URLs. Well, and I don't think, I mean, the whole point of this curriculum project also was to continue these kinds of conversations. So if this becomes a thing that people want to continue to have a conversation about or have a working group about, you all have the MorphoNet platform where you can rally your colleagues to have these conversations, or we can reach back out to Carly and, you know, if we want to, we've got some dates set aside for more curriculum development time to put on people's calendars. So this could be an ongoing project. You know, Kelly, I know, is also very interested in this work, as is Nancy. So yeah, I say keep the conversation going, and if you start building things and we can share, we could share those links, right? Because I mean, obviously you can make these maps shareable. That's the whole point. So you could share the links to the maps that you're working on in the curriculum development group on MorphoNet, so that you guys could see what everybody else is doing and maybe gather yourselves together if it's off of this platform to move those things forward. So this is fantastic. Thank you, Carly, very much. Does anybody else have other questions for Carly?
Yeah, yes, I have a question for Carly. If I were to set up a story map for my students, say like at a local park where I want them to do a field trip on their own and maybe use iNaturalist or go bird watching, and I sort of set up a map, I don't know, that'd be coordinating a lot of apps, but I would have to set that up on a computer and then they would have to install the app on their phone and then just they would log points.
Yes, but if you want to make it as easy as possible for the students, because they're not with you, as opposed to making as easy as possible for you, which is what I normally do, to make it as easy as possible for your students, don't do survey 1, 2, 3. Just make them all co-editors of your map. Tell them to go take like normal pictures or whatever they want and just put it on the map. And then they don't have to they don't have to do any apps. They don't have to have any additional apps or anything else.
Oh, so they would have to, when they got back home, they would upload the photos?
Yeah.
From their phone?
Yes. Or from their computer.
Okay. Okay, interesting. I'll have to experiment. Thank you, Carly.
I mean, I like survey 1, 2, 3, but it is an additional layer. So if you don't want to do that additional layer, the kids can just put things directly on the map.
Mm-hmm.
They also have different contests. They have one about oceans that's going on right now, but it's only for high school and up, which is very disappointing. But those seem fun too, where kids like just make their own story maps about something they're passionate about. So this topic was anything about ocean conservation. And then they can like just compete for prizes with other kids. And so then if they're making their own map, they can do that from the comfort of their home if you're distance learning or something, and no other applications would be needed.
Be fun to figure out how to put something together that we could all experiment with, you know, around the Amazon. I don't know, your favorite picture, your favorite whatever, or, you know, some story map that we could use so we could learn how to do this collectively and then also have a really amazing like story map of people's experiences in the Amazon. I think Kelly Keena would be an excellent leader of that endeavor. Just saying, Kelly.
It sounds very exciting. I would, I mean, I would actually really love to take that on. It'd be something we could think about, I think, in the run up to next summer too. And Carly, it'll be great that you're there. We can kind of put our heads together.
Yeah.
Well, could Carly make a practice map of the whole United States where all the participants would just log their favorite natural spot and have all North America there?
So that would actually be easy for me to do, but everyone would have to make their own accounts first.
Okay.
Okay. So when you say they have to make their own accounts, like first, as in first, or everybody's going to need their own account at some point to be able to log in to access a map that's already been started? You understand my question?
Yes, sort of first, so I can make them co-editors.
Okay.
I mean, I could add other people on later. It wouldn't have to be everyone first, but it would make sense to have most people make accounts first.
Okay. All right. Well, y'all have homework.
And my kids would love it, even if you just uploaded a picture of your school. See where other people are and what it looks like.
Yeah, for sure. Very cool.
Can you tell us about how long you spend with the kids on a certain story map, like from start to finish, I guess, or how many class periods, or, you know?
So
I guess
it varies very significantly. So it could be one class period, or like some of those were huge projects that like took a year and a half to do. Like the Bermuda and the Germany one were really huge story maps that took a lot of work. But then If you're just doing it with a group of elementary kids, like 2 classes would be good, depending on how in-depth you're going. And sometimes we do story maps with other schools in other countries. And so we end up spending more time on them, not because they actually take more time, but just because like we're having fun, like looking at what data they're putting in too. So then it's like a whole class period looking at the other kids, what they're adding to the story map, and then a whole class period of what we're putting on as well.
Okay. The example you gave with the water, comparing with the Amazon and what you had written, the info on the left, the sidecar one, I think you were showing. That information, each student works together on putting all that info in, or is like each student has their own story, like their own info, or it's a collaboration, right?
Right. So a couple
Like when you wrote like
part, but all of them didn't work on all of the parts.
okay, like the info that said like this leads to that river and this leads to that river, like they all typed that in.
Yes. I mean, they narrated and I typed because it was just one class
Okay.
period. But yes. Yep.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome. And sometimes they don't need, so today it needed to flow because it was literally a watershed. So the writing also had to flow, but sometimes they're putting in like wildly different examples of things. So the writing doesn't have to match at all.
Carly, do you use this as a performance evaluation, not performance, as an evaluation tool also, like have kids show their knowledge and their learning through the creation of a story map about what they've learned? Like they do individual things?
I have not. I have actually tried that before, but I haven't tried in the last year or so. And with all of the technical barriers, at least like a year or so ago, it just didn't work out to use it as an assessment piece.
Sure, that makes sense. Yeah, got it. Okay, wonderful.
I think it would be really cool though. And I bet somebody else could do it. It just didn't work for me.
Well, it does depend on, how kids are able to access to it, don't want that to be a barrier. So, okay, cool. All right, so Michelle's got her account set up. She's ready.
Oh.
All right. All right, anybody else have questions for Carly, or we can let her go and we can continue this conversation in MorphoNet. And if you don't mind, Carly, you want to drop your email in the chat?
Sure, I did a bit earlier, but I'll put it in again, so it will be the last thing you see.
That's great, thank you.
So if you're having a hard time seeing it, it's CIMHOFF@ashfordct.org. And you'll all remember Ashford because we just spent a lot of time looking at a map of Ashford.
No, thank you. This was super helpful, and yeah, I think to be continued. We won't take the time tonight, but I'm also very intrigued about your connections to the Sustainable Development Goals, also, and the intention behind that. Because we're certainly talking about that. We had a presentation last year with 2 teachers out in Seattle that have been doing that at the elementary level too, and we're trying to dig into that much deeper as well. So lots of connections there. So thank you, Carly. We appreciate it. Thanks everybody for taking the time tonight. Hang in there. I know, now we're like barreling into the holidays. And, I know school for a lot of you has gotten off to maybe a rougher start than anticipated. So it's nice to see your faces. I hope that the rest of the semester goes well, and watch your emails, more announcements, lots of stuff's going on in Morpho land. So yeah, open those emails up because you never know what you might find. Like, I don't know, cash prizes for PD if you win the story map thing. So that's awesome. That was worth tuning in for tonight's session just to have that little tidbit. So I'll see if I can't track down where that link is so you can see what the requirements are, and I'll shoot that out to everybody, okay?
I can send you the link as well.
Okay, sounds good. All right, thanks everybody. Have a good night.